Carolina, a teenage girl violently pulled to the ground by the school resource officer. It happened at the Spring Valley High School in Richland County, but refused to leave. A Richland County spokesman for the department.
He has questions just like everybody else does, and he wants answers to those questions once this investigation is totally completed.
Now, 2 students were arrested, including that particular girl. Apparently, one young girl who tried to come to that student's aid. Also, they were critical of the student in the classroom who shot that video. The Richland 2 Black Panther Association has, but to have this officer violently take her out of that chair and drag her, and then, if you see the extended video, he then tells the other students, "I will arrest all of you as well."
A black man who happened to be a cop, not a cop who happened to be a black man. And I'm very, very keenly aware of civil rights issues. I'm very keenly aware of use of force issues. I led the Detroit Police Department to 90% compliance with 2 federal consent judgments. The first was for conditional confinement. The second was relative to use of force. So I'm an expert in the area of use of force. I have been responsible for policy development and implementation and accountability measures to make sure that those things have taken place. The Detroit Police Department is out of federal oversight. Chief Craig took over the department. Levels of, well, first of all, officers are trained on what's called a use of force continuum. The lowest level of force is the officer's presence, by merely showing up in uniform or in some manner by which it's understood that they are law enforcement. That is a level, that's the lowest level of use of force. The second level of use of force is verbal commands. The third level of use of force it deals relative to holds and pressure points. It's called soft hand techniques. There are 2 levels of resistance that an officer has to be concerned with in apprehending someone. The first level is called passive resistance. That means the person is doing nothing, but they're just not complying with verbal commands. The second level of resistance that an officer deals with is called active resistance. That means the person is either running, fighting, kicking, screaming, but doing something to actively resist the officer. Now, you're going to hear a lot of talking heads that want to defend this officer's behavior and say, we don't know what happened before on the tape, nor do we know what happened immediately after. I can see the tape very clearly, and the young lady is not actively resisting, number 1. Number 2, the room is not in disarray. There's not a fight. The students are sitting orderly. There's not any loud noises going on, anything. And even if the student is to be removed by the teacher's direction and request, the officer still has to follow the training standards that are necessary to fulfill what's called a use of force continuum. What we witnessed on that video was called a takedown. A takedown is a mechanism that is utilized. It's called a hard hands technique, where you can punch, you can strike, you can hit, you can use pepper spray, you can use an intermediate force device, you can use less than lethal force because someone's actively resisting. The young lady, regardless of what precipitated before that, when the officer was present, there was calm. There was no active resistance that you see on that video at all. She was immediately taken down. That is completely improper, going by the use of force continuum.
Resource officer. It happened at the Spring Valley High School in Richland County. The sheriff's office says the student was under arrest for causing a disturbance in the classroom, but refused to leave. A Richland County spokesman for the department.
However, a reasonable and objective person looking at that video saw an officer who was clearly out of control. He made very little attempt to go through a verbal command, and then after the verbal commands had not been complied with, then trying what's called soft hands. They're pressure points. There's a bar arm lock where the person with their thumb, there's a way to maneuver a person with their thumb to where you can gain compliance without slamming that young lady to the floor, dragging her across the room as if she was a criminal holding an AK-47.